Okay.
Okay.
So this is Sarah Nachman with Eagle News Broadcasting, and I am speaking through Google Hangout with Miriam Vincent. And she is our Electoral College expert. Hi, Miriam.
Hi, Sarah.
So after the election, the unexpected has happened.
Right.
A lot of the medias did not predict this. Polls did not predict this. So now we have Donald Trump as the elected president of the United States, the 45th president. So
Well,
a lot of
he's
people,
not yet
I'm
elected.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So just he probably will be, but he's not actually elected, and he's the predicted winner at this point because we don't have any actual final votes done.
Right. So we have protests everywhere. A lot of them are, most of them, majority of them, actually all of them, are Hillary Clinton supporters, and the chant of "Not my president" is catching on online. Twitter hashtag "Not my president," not my elected president. So anyway, I also saw that a lot of them are angry because the Electoral College, they feel that did not work for them because majority of the voting, popular vote, went to Hillary by, as of now, I saw that it's about 400,000 difference.
Right.
So they are upset because the 400,000 seems to be, I heard one individual said, one vote should equal one vote.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's protests for the Electoral College, and they're saying, so now what do we do at this point? What can they do? Is there anything that can be done to change this through the Electoral College process that's happening December 19, or is it just a useless demonstration that they're doing?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say that anything is useless, and I don't want to discourage anyone from either side from sharing how they feel or making a statement. But as far as the process, a lot of people are coming up with the idea that they're going to lobby the members of the Electoral College to get them to change their vote from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton. And so we have actually, at the Office of the Federal Register, been receiving just an enormous number of phone calls and emails and Facebook posts trying to contact the electors directly. That may or may not work because the electors are actually, they're partisan. I mean, it's not that the state is appointing a set of neutral individuals who then will vote according to the popular vote in their state.
Right.
It's the political party that won the popular vote within that state that has said, here are the people that we want you to appoint. So for the states, California and New York are the big ones that are expected, once the final vote's in, to have voted for Hillary Clinton. So those electors will be Democrats. The Democratic Party in California and in New York have said, okay, if Democrats win the state, here are the people we want you to appoint. It's the same thing in Texas, which again, is predicted to be Republican, and when the final votes are in, probably will. And so it's the Republican Party in Texas that has given the state for the state to appoint. And so all of these people are partisan. They're supporters of their own party, which usually the party's not going to nominate someone to be an elector if they think that that person is not going to stay loyal to the party. I mean, it would be against the party's interest.
Right.
So the people, the members of the Electoral College, once they're appointed, the people that would be lobbied then are most likely partisan, possibly intensely partisan Republicans. So yes, it's theoretically possible that the Electoral College will vote to elect Hillary Clinton rather than Donald Trump. history says that it's very unlikely. It's not going to.
It hasn't happened before in history?
Correct. In terms of the faithless elector, so someone who is pledged to vote for one candidate and then at the last minute changes his or her vote and votes for someone else.
Those are called faithless electors?
Yes. And I believe that's also a hashtag that I've seen. I don't know if it's trending or not, but we've seen it a lot on the Twitter and the Facebook posts that are directed to us. But so since 1789, in terms of all of the information that we have, less than 1% of all of the electors cumulative. So for all of the elections since 1789, less than 1% of the electors have been faithless. So it's a very small, minuscule, if you will, number, and never a faithless elector has never changed the ultimate expected outcome of the election. So history says that it's not going to happen this year either.
Right.
But we're not there yet. We'll have to wait and see what happens on December 19th.
So is it what happens if for some reason you have a lot of faithless electors because maybe something, you never know what's going to happen with this election. Everything seems to happen by the minute, by the hour. Something happens and all of a sudden the electors turn. Then what happens? So she gains more electors. What does that do?
Well, because it's the Electoral College who elects the president, it's not the popular vote. So it's not the national popular vote, which is the sum of all of the popular vote results from all the states. And the popular vote within the state is the states use that to decide which party's electors to appoint as the electors. But the vote for president has not happened. So that's why we can't say that Donald Trump is the elected president, because the meeting of the electors is not until December 19th. That is the actual vote for president and for vice president. And so if enough electors decide that they're not going to vote for Donald Trump, that they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton, if she had enough so that she ended up with 270 electoral votes, then she would in fact be elected president. You know, again, it's very, that would be an unexpected outcome. That certainly is not going to be the outcome if we let history be the guide. But as you say, it hasn't happened yet. So, you know, we have to wait and see what happens. I would not expect it to happen.
A lot of these young kids, okay, so now there's a very, 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 very unlikely possibility of the electors turning towards Hillary and her gaining more electors than Donald Trump on December 19th. A lot of these young kids are saying, well, we got to take it somewhere. Is there anything they can do at the Supreme Court level to change this now or in the future? To change the Electoral College process?
Well, to change the
what will it take to change the Electoral College process into a popular vote?
To remove the Electoral College completely actually needs a constitutional amendment. So the Supreme Court's not going to do anything to say, oh, we've got to go with the popular vote. The Electoral College process is written into the Constitution. It was written into Article 2, Section 1, so it's been there since the Constitution was ratified. It predates even the Bill of Rights. So, I mean, it's an original part of the Constitution. It has been modified in different ways. The biggest, most recent way was the 12th Amendment, which was the beginning of the 1800s, which removed the original vision was that the electors would vote twice, and then whoever had the most votes would be president, and whoever had the second most votes would be vice president. And that did not work well at all by the third term. So that's when they changed with the 12th Amendment so that the electors still vote twice, but they vote once for president and they vote once for vice president. So that's been the most significant change, and that was 200 plus years ago. Since then, different groups have been added in to allow for voting. Women have the right to vote. Blacks, the former slaves who are emancipated, they have the right to vote. So we've increased the voting pool. But we have not significantly changed the structure of the Electoral College because, again, it will take a constitutional amendment to eliminate it or to significantly change it. And so that would be a joint resolution from both houses of Congress that would have to be passed by a 2/3 majority in each house. And then 3/4 of the states would have to ratify it.
Well, we've been down this road before.
Mm-hmm.
People want to get rid of the Electoral College because the popular vote from the election was not the president.
Correct.
How much more, can the United States keep going with the Electoral College when people are feeling that their votes were muted, set aside?
Right, and that I don't know. I really can't speak to that. The 2000 election was Gore versus Bush, and that we had the similar situation where Vice President Gore had the popular vote, the national popular vote, but Bush had the electoral votes. Before that, the last time it had happened was 1888, I believe. So it had been more than 100 years since there had been a discrepancy. So the fact that it's now happened twice in 20 years, it may be the impetus that the rest of the United States have decided, okay, we're going to change it. Or it may not. There was a lot of discussion in 2000 or after the 2000 election that didn't go anywhere. So I don't know. I can't predict what's going to happen. As far as this specific election, I'm not a constitutional scholar. I can't speak specifically to the Constitution, but I don't see any cause of action that would result in a lawsuit that would end up at the Supreme Court that would have to do with this particular election. The 2000 election did end up at the Supreme Court, but that was solely on the issue of whether Florida had to continue with the recount or if they could make the decision to not. And so it was strictly about Florida and Florida state law and how Florida was applying that law to that current situation. And so that's why we had that lawsuit. But I don't see, at least not in the media right now, anything that would result in a similar cause of action.
So with this issue, a lot of the states are very close. The percentage are very close. Mm-hmm. Is there? I'm not sure if you know of this, if this is your expertise or line of expertise. But the recount, how do you recount when it's so close for each state?
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, to go back to the original concept of the Electoral College, it's the states who decide, and the states individually get to determine what process they have in place. So I don't know the specifics of any particular state, but I do know that they're all going to have some sort of law regarding recounts in general. So within either a certain number of votes or a certain percentage, there would be an automatic recount, and that vote number or the percentage could vary from state to state. So I don't really know what state has what, but there's going to be some minimum threshold where if it's that close, there's going to be an automatic recount without anybody asking for it. Beyond that, then there will be procedures for individual candidates or state parties to request a recount. And then again, that would be up to the political party or the candidate to make that determination. Is it going to be worth it or not? And then they have to follow the requirements of that particular state.
Right.
So there is a process in place. I don't know what the specific process is, but there may be some recounts. I haven't seen today. The last I saw, no one was really calling Michigan yet. You know, that's so close. I would assume that that's going to be some sort of recount just because it's so close.
Right.
That would be prompted by the state itself. But beyond that, I haven't seen any reports of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or either of the candidates' campaigns requesting recounts. So it may be happening and it's not being reported. But as far as I'm aware, there isn't a request for that.
So I guess in summary, so all tests that's going on around the country, basically it's going to be very difficult because those electors belong to the partisan party.
Right.
And it would be impossible for them to go against their party and cast a vote the other way. So
Right.
as opposed to casting the vote to Donald Trump, they would not go against that and vote it for Hillary. But most likely not. So in the event that they do, is it the winner take all state? Do they all have to decide it, or being that it's a winner take all electors or electoral college in that state, is if one electors decide to go another way, like for example for Pennsylvania, does that not matter because it's a winner take all, or does that one count for Hillary and 19 for Donald Trump?
It would be 1 for Hillary Clinton and 19 for Donald Trump, because the winner take all concept is with regard to the popular vote for the state to appoint the full slate of electors from one of the political parties. So
there's another possibility then that, you take 1, 2, 3 in the 50 states, that can add up.
Right.
Okay, so it's not necessarily that it's a winner take all. Electors would all have to agree.
Correct.
Right.
Once they're appointed as electors, sorry about that. Once they're appointed as electors, then they make their own individual vote. So, one can do one thing, and that's why we have faithless electors, but it's usually just 1 or 2. And it's those specific votes. They're counted for whoever the new candidate is. I'm unaware, at least in recent history, of a faithless elector deciding to change the vote for the other candidate. Usually it's more of a protest vote, and it's for someone who was either a third-party candidate in the race or someone who wasn't even campaigning for president.
Okay.
And so the most recent faithless elector that actually cast a vote for someone else was 1968. And that single vote was not cast in favor of either of the 2 main candidates.
I see.
And then the most recent faithless elector was in 2000. One of the electors in Washington, D.C. just did not cast a vote at all as a protest, I believe, because D.C. is still not a state. So both of those were basically protest votes, but did not benefit the opposing candidate.
Right. So they basically just withheld their vote for the two candidates.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. All right then. Well, great to know. And these are great information for people to know. I know there's concern with the young voters, with the millennials out there, and maybe some of them don't know how the process goes. And not, including myself, we're not all familiar with the Electoral College so much, but it just, hopefully everything works itself out. And it would be interesting to see if the Electoral College would change, would be removed, and if we will just go with the popular vote instead of Electoral College.
Right. So there is something right now. It's called the National Popular Vote, I believe, the MPV. And so a handful of states have passed this. It will not trigger until enough states have pledged their electors to this concept. But the thought is that if the states pass this legislation, that they would then, they're agreeing to be bound by the national popular vote, no matter what the popular vote within their state was. So that's a way that they're trying to avoid having to change the Constitution. It would still be the Electoral College. They would still be appointing electors, but they would all agree to be bound by the national popular vote, which is currently not a consideration as part of the Electoral College. So
then that would be electors equals the popular vote. So it's almost one-on-one. Is that what you're saying? Okay. All right. So for the people that are demonstrating out there, there's a slim possibility, but it's very slim, and that you will have a faithless electors to cast their vote for a different candidate that they pledged to vote for. Very slim. So, I mean, is it useless? Should they stop demonstrating now?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's almost at this point, you know, I almost think, you know, it's good to hear your voice, but at the same time, you know, if it's pointless, how can they channel their energy somewhere else? Is it going forward in the future to change the Constitution instead of what's happening, you know, instead of the election result now?
Right. And you know, again, I can't speak to any of that specifically, but you know, history shows that the protests to try and change the electors' minds or to vote or to lobby the electors to change is not going to be successful. And therefore, if they want to change things, then they have to look at changing going forward and not looking at this particular election. But you know, I don't want to tell anybody that they cannot protest.
Right.
That is definitely part of our history. You know, allowed, encouraged, protected under the Constitution. So if they feel it's going to change something, then I certainly don't want to say, well, stop protesting and do something else. But it is unlikely to change the outcome of the election for this year. Other things may have a greater impact. But if they do feel that strongly about what's going on, then look at you know, changing things going forward. You know, again, we have a very low percentage of voters who actually show up to vote compared with a lot of other countries. So, you know, encourage people to start voting. You know, get the participation rate up. Look at what you can change and channel your energy that way. Would be, again, for going forward. But for right now, you know, they feel very strongly. So if that's what they need to do, you know, I'm not going to say that they should stop protesting. You know, again, it's part of our history. So.
Well, thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you for clearing it up some more.
I'll try. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
you.
Bye.